Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another webinar. Today's webinar is titled Get Ready for EdReady. So we will be, of course, covering EdReady topics and reporting. My name is Jamie Trujillo, and I will be moderating the webinar. I am here with the ever so brilliant Cash Clifton and Dawn Dutton, who will be presenting the webinar. So before we get started, I just wanted to really quickly remind everyone that we do have Teachers Chat open forums every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday for 1 hour. These are not formal webinars. These are just opportunities for you to come online, ask questions, share feedback, and receive feedback as well. So Mondays are in the morning from 7:30 to 8:30, and I moderate those. Tuesdays are from noon to 1, and Cash moderates those. And Thursdays are from 6 to 7, and Dawn moderates those. So it happens that all three of us are on today's call, which is a little fun. So if you are interested, you can go to www.nmdelt.org and you can see the URLs for each one. And of course, we do send reminders, so those are always open for you. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I will hand it over to Cash and Dawn.
Thank you, Jamie. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Let me get my screen shared. Okay, and as Jamie said, if you're having a hard time viewing my screen, you might want to consider pinning it so that that stays on the screen. So I want to start out and find out a little bit about you, about what do you hope to learn about EdReady today. Now, I can't promise I'll be able to get to everything in today's webinar, but if there are things I don't get to today, it'll give me an idea of what to present in our next EdReady series. So if you would, take just a couple minutes and respond to this poll. So you can either do this on your computer or in your browser on a mobile device at thepollev.com web address there, or you can text Cash Clifton 941, and that has to be all uppercase to 37607. So give everybody just a minute to work on that. And cool thing about Poll Everywhere is we'll be able to see your responses as they come in.
And I'll just add that, of course, I'm sure you can see this, but the URL and the text information is right there at the top, if you haven't gotten that yet.
If you haven't used Poll Everywhere before, it is a free tool. So here we have somebody brand new. I think this will be hopefully a great place to start if you are brand new to it. Here's somebody else. Okay, so somebody who wants to know the basics. Great. More about updates to reporting of hours. Great. And Dawn is going to be talking about that during our webinar today. Just a little bit longer, and then we'll start getting into the meat of the webinar. As a new teacher, the hardest thing for me was pausing to give people a minute to think. And here we have no expectations, just seeing what is new. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to exit out of that. So again, this is polleverywhere.com, and it is a free tool if you're wondering how you can get students to interact a little bit in your classes. So let's start looking at EdReady. So I want to start out with the question of what is EdReady. So EdReady includes math and it includes English. So I'll let you read that definition there to yourself. And the cool thing about EdReady, or I guess I should say one of the cool things about EdReady, is that it creates a customized learning path. So it takes into account the idea that your students are coming in with some prior knowledge, that they do already know things, and there's not necessarily a point in reteaching things that students already know. So students take an assessment of their skills, and then it generates this little path right here. So you can see here, this is 42, so that means a student took an initial knowledge test and they were able to manage 42% of the, master 42% of the topics. And then now EdReady, you can see these little dots in purple along here. This is showing students their path to get their score up to 90. So you can see here, this student needs to start in decimals. They can, and EdReady is suggesting that they start with adding and subtracting decimals, and then the student can go in there and learn more about that. So both math and English, you essentially create your curriculum, students take a test, and then they begin working based on the results of that, assessment. So EdReady calls this a knowledge inventory. So the knowledge inventory is somewhat customizable, as is the curriculum. So very, very customizable within here. So your students work in goals, and we'll define a little bit better what that means. From goal, once you create your goals, the students move into a knowledge inventory, and then they move into resources for studying. Now, if you're familiar with things like Khan Academy videos and Hippocampus lessons, those things are integrated within EdReady. So there's some really great resources. I've been using EdReady with my students since 2016, and I get very, very positive feedback from students. So I work with a lot of different programs. I've worked with Alex, I've worked with Pearson's My Math Lab, and students typically tell me EdReady is their very favorite program. The thing that students tell me they like about it is that the interface is very cheerful. As you can see, it's bright colors, it's very happy looking, it's very constructive. And this idea of a student taking a test and saying, hey, look at how much you already know, that can be a really, really great way to start building rapport with your students. So it can do a lot of things. I know we're looking at adult education specifically today, so we do have some curriculum built in EdReady that helps students get ready for things like TABE, HiSET, and GED, but there are also college readiness elements within here too, and we've seen at the University of New Mexico that the college readiness elements are absolutely fantastic in terms of setting students up for success. So EdReady is not just EdReady. There's multiple websites. So understand, we're talking about the DELT version of EdReady. This is the version of EdReady that's customized for adult education in the state of New Mexico. So you're not going to be working with just the regular EdReady. So if you want to request an instructor account in EdReady, right here, this is tinyurl.com/nmdelt and ER for EdReady. You can also request that account from the NMDELT homepage. So let's see. I'm going to open this in my browser here. So this is www.nmdelt.org, and for some reason you have to include the www or it doesn't seem to work. So this is the website Jamie showed us before the webinar got started. You hover over Connect with Us, and then you come down here, and this gets you to this EdReady page. So this is the same page that tiny URL will take you to. And here is where you request an instructor account. So instructor's account accounts actually have to be made by an admin. So you can either do a request from that web page, or you're more than welcome to just email me if you'd like. My email iscclifton4@nmdelt.org. Just when you email me, please be sure to let me know what your NMDELT email address is and which adult education program you're affiliated with. So this is available free of cost, as long as you're affiliated with a New Mexico funded adult education program. So once you have your account, you log in at nmdelt.edready.org. Now be very careful with this, because there is just a generic www.edready.org. And if you just type that into Google, that's what comes up. That is a different system. So I highly recommend make sure that you and your students are working in the NMDELT version of EdReady. We've had issues in the past where students will create an account in the regular version of EdReady. The problem with that is it won't necessarily save their progress, and you will not be able to monitor their progress for tracking. So make sure you're at the nmdelt.edready.org website, and it'll come up like this. If you're not sure whether or not you're at the correct website, look for the little DELT logo. So you can see in the upper left-hand corner there, New Mexico Distance Education Learning Technologies for NMDELT. So instructor accounts, you're going to need to go through the NMDELT homepage or reach out to me to get that. Student accounts are going to be created automatically. So if a student wants to create an account, they come here to our webpage and they click Get Started. And then all they have to do is fill in this little bit of information. They're just going to need some kind of email address. It's going to generate automatically, so the student will get a link that goes to their email account. They click on the link, and then their account is active. So students can register for this and be working within like a few minutes. One word of caution, I suggest telling students to be sure and use an email account they can access. I have had a lot of issues where students will use some old Yahoo account that they don't remember the password for. So please make sure students understand that this is going to be an email that they actually need to be able to check. So going back to the homepage here, you log in up here in the upper left-hand corner with your username and password. And notice there are some resources here. So here's a student quick start guide. So I'll click on that. And this just tells your students how to get rolling in EdReady. So it's not very long, it's just 3 pages long, but it gives them a quick overview of what they're going to be doing in EdReady. There's also an instructor guide here, and this is actually linking you back to the NMDELT website. So if you want to learn, if you want to see the instructor's guide, that's going to take you to this right here. And then here's just a quick 4-minute video of an EdReady walkthrough. And I do suggest having your students watch the video and start there. Okay. So just to remind you quickly, the EdReady support page through NMDELT, you can get to that through the tiny URL or directly through the NMDELT website. And then make sure you're using the NMDELT version of EdReady, not just the regular EdReady page. You won't have all the features that you need. So I do want to give you some thoughts about wording. So EdReady is going to talk about scopes. Please understand scope is a bit of a synonym for curriculum. So if as Dawn and I refer to scopes, understand we're talking about the content that is built for students to actually work through. Now this includes math and English. So math is great in my opinion. It covers all levels. You can go down to basic things like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. It goes as high as trig. And we've even seen some students who are able to test into calculus when they're college bound, and those students succeed in calculus. So I'm very impressed with what it can do in terms of college readiness. So the math covers all levels. I suggest being more cautious with the English. The English is pretty high level. The English is really specific for college readiness. So especially for things like reading and writing and arithmetic, I don't think EdReady is the best program for that. Purely in my opinion, I think something like Plato might be more appropriate for those students. So if a scope is curriculum, goals are groups of students, and you may think of that as your class. So when I do goals, I use that as a class. So if I'm teaching a 5-week class for CNM, I create a goal, and all the students for that 5-week class work within that. And that's just to make my reporting more efficient. Now, as you do create goals, please be sure to set them as private rather than public. That way you're going to be able to restrict it so that only your students are in there. If you do create a public goal, you're probably going to start getting students from all over the state in there and going, who the heck is this person? And it will really complicate your reporting. So please, please, please make sure that goals are private. And as you're thinking about how do you want to group your students, I highly suggest think about what is going to make your life easier. So I'm all about efficiency. I had an old boss who'd always talk about work smarter, not harder. So as you're setting this up, think about what's going to make reporting easiest for you. So food for thought, and I'd like to transition into reporting now. And I'm going to turn it over to my very brilliant colleague, Dawn Dutton, who, as you can see, has adjusted very, very well to quarantine.
I'm fine. Really, I'm fine.
That's brilliant, Dawn. Brilliant.
What?
No, you're doing great, Dawn. You're doing great.
Are you stopping presenting, Cash?
I'm trying to.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go. Apparently
I just
Cash
wanted
is
people to
being
get a
just
good
as
look.
fine.
Yeah, there you go, Dawn. I'm off presenting.
Oh dear. So, hello everyone. Are you with me now?
Yes, we can hear you. I'm not sure if you're trying to share your screen, but we can't see your screen just yet.
You haven't seen my screen just yet. Alrighty, and sorry, there it is. There we go. And my session timed out. Can you see my EdReady screen now?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yep, got it.
So I'm signing up for EdReady. I'm not going to do that. I had this session up and ready to go, but it timed out. That's something you might want to remember, that it does time you out after a few minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and log in again with my email and password. Now I have a, what is my password? Oh no, this is a problem, since this stuff seems to happen automatically usually. Before I begin,
I think we can all relate.
Oh, yeah.
There was a chat question about the ASVAB. As I recall, Cash and if you can remember, Jamie, if you can remember, I think Tina made a STEM goal at one time. If that goal is still there, that would relate pretty favorably to to the levels of math on the ASVAB, the applied math especially. So so that one does exist. And as far as the content goes, I mentioned in the chat that I taught soldiers at White Sands to prepare for a retest in ASVAB for about 1.5 years, and we had very good success with teaching math online. So you might tell that student that it's out there, and he or she can do that. So here we are. We have logged into EdReady. I'm going to talk about data collection and analysis a bit. Your teacher account, or your account that you have, may look a little bit different than mine, but I'm pretty sure that most of the things I'm going to talk about are available on your teacher account. Mine is an admin account, and typically we would go into this and we would click on this edit EdReady version to get to to create a goal or to look at student work and that sort of thing. But we're not going to go there first. First, I want to show you one way. I'm going to show you three ways, three things that we do. And I'll tell you that until recently, for the last 2 or 3 years, I've gathered data for the entire state of New Mexico in this program. So all of that stuff that I did for there is, might be mildly interesting, but it's not going to help you as a teacher. I'm going to show you that stuff. But just as a way to get to things, I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of how we did that. The first thing I'm going to show you is there's one way to find every single student that has had any activity, even those that have not completed the diagnostic. Some don't show up on student reports if they have not completed that yet. And there's a reason why students might not have completed that. They may have paused it, they may have saved it to come back and finish it later. But in the summary reports, again, on that first page, you're going to click on Summary Reports and come down here and ask for Email Enrollment Report. This is how you get the report. What I get is I get 2 to 3 pages of Excel spreadsheets that are 10,000 rows of data long. So I get between, let's say, 25,000 lines of data. So I typically don't go through all of those, but I will show you what that looks like if you're interested in getting all the data on every student. This is what it looks like here, I think, yes. Here is the EdReady Enrollment Report. Now, I've taken about half of the columns out of this report, and I've also highlighted these 2 columns over there and gone to our favorite data function over here under data, and I've come down here to remove duplicates. I recommend highly that you do that if you're going to look at individual students, because this report shows every single thing that every single person did every single time they logged on. So we've turned this 25,000 into, I think it's about 1,260 lines of data now. But if you want to know how many students were active for the month, you can sort the last login line here and find out how many students have been active for the month. Time using EdReady, you can look at all these things here. Look at the goal name, and then look at the ID, the initial diagnostic score, most recent, and score gain for all of the people that are in the program at that time for that month after you sort for that. I'm going to go back to the EdReady now, to our home page now, and show you what oh, I'm sorry. When we came here, the second thing we did when we collected information was we went to that page and clicked on goals, and all of our goals came up. Now, again, my screen is going to show 350 goals or something. Your screen may not, hopefully doesn't show that many. If you're looking to see how a class or goal is doing, that's something you can do here. I know that over here on page 5, I'm going to look at Bill's class. Over in Deming, Bill has a class, English class. If we click on details here, and there's a lot of redundancy in this reporting, but this is one way to look at a whole bunch of details on one page for a class, rather than an individual. So here, and those of you who asked about reporting of hours, this is not the place to report on a student's hours. This is average hours for the class or for the goal. But this has students who have completed, students who have improved, median initial score and most recent score, and then a chart showing how numbers have gone up here in this chart most of the time. So that's a good way to look at how the class is doing also. Now, I want to go back to here. And again, on your home page, before clicking on the EdReady version, the advanced reporting is a fairly new feature here we like a lot. Advanced reporting is where we're going to see student information. Some of this, as I said, is maybe a bit redundant, but here, if we go, again, we can see goal reports here, but here we see individual student reports. So we click on student reports. Here we can apply filters to find the goal that or the class that we want to look at. Again, I'm going to go down here and see all these goals again. Scroll down and see if I can find Bill's class again. And there it is. And I'm just going to filter for Bill's class, or goal. That's what we call them in EdReady. Now here we have all the students, so I can look at, say, Rachel Gomez and generate her report. Now here we have the time in EdReady. So does this documents the amount of time that she's been in front of the computer? Do we know exactly what she's been doing all this whole time? No, we don't, but it is a way to document hours. And you can see the login count and the last login and all that information. Now this student has not done very much work, or this report would be longer. And you can email this report right there also. And that's three ways that you can look at data in EdReady. And if it's all right with everybody, I'm going to come back over here and stop presenting, okay?
Thank you so much, Don.
All righty. You got it, Cash.
All right, Cash, we can see your screen. We just cannot hear you.
Oh, it helps if I unmute, doesn't it? So I'll show you a few more things in EdReady, and then we'll be sure and leave plenty of time at the end today for questions and answers. So can you see my screen, Jamie?
Yes.
Great. So these are some best practices for student success. So the idea of just make it part of your normal class routine. Don't tell students it's optional. I've had a lot of luck doing synchronous learning online where we're actually working on it together. So there's this phenomenon with Gen Z students that I don't quite understand, where often they like to do homework together on video chat. So I'll see, well, before COVID, when we were still in the office, I would see students all the time sitting there on their laptop furiously working in EdReady, and for some reason they like to have a little group of friends, and I'd see, you know, Meet or FaceTime or something up in the corner, and they're working together. So I think just establishing that this is a part of the normal class, and maybe consider something live where your students can work in EdReady together. Grades I don't think are terribly appropriate for adult ed always, but I do like the idea of discussing data with students. So students will see their scores increasing as they work in EdReady, and I think it's really good to discuss that with the students and look at what you're seeing in their reports and work with them on success plans. So just some ideas for student success. Study plans are very, very useful, and then guided note-taking can be useful too. I try to teach my students the Cornell method in math classes, and so just be aware EdReady Montana has some really nice templates that you can download for free, or there are lots of other templates you can find if you just do a quick Google search. So food for thought on that. So before I show you some other resources, I want to show you a little bit more within EdReady. So I want to show you how you would create an actual class. So I'm going to open a new tab here and go to EdReady. And Dawn, now you have me worried if I know my password or not. So let's see. Hey, success, I got it the first time. So let's say I want to create a class for my students. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Edit EdReady Version. And remember, a group of students is called a goal. So I'm going to go over here to Goal to create my class. So I'm going to create a new goal. And now notice I can't click to make it active yet. So the thing is, this doesn't have any curriculum and I can't activate it until it's named and has a curriculum. So I'm going to name it. So I'll just say this is a demonstration for today. Instructions are optional. This is what students are going to see pop up whenever they first add the goal. So this is optional. Now notice the description has a little asterisk beside it, so it's required. So I'm just going to say in here, this is not a real goal. And I'll put a happy face right there. So now the owner is automatically going to be you. So cache test, that's just the name of the teacher account that I'm using here. And notice by default, it's going to be private. I cannot stress enough, please, please, please don't make your goal public, or you're going to have all kinds of random people from all over the state joining your goal, and reporting is going to get very, very difficult. It's going to automatically be EdReady. Please don't make this an external goal type. Please leave that as EdReady. And then you can add a tag if you want. So maybe I want to, if I'm creating this for a C&M class, maybe I want to tag C&M and create my goal there. Okay, so I created the goal, but notice I still can't make it active. And again, it's not active until there's curriculum. And the term for curriculum in EdReady is going to be scopes. So I come over here to scopes, and this is where I can add some curriculum in. So notice we have some HSE scopes. So right there are the HSE levels. Notice the English portion we explicitly call college readiness. So once again, I don't think that's appropriate for lower level students. I personally am a fan of the NRS levels. Somebody asked about STEM readiness math for the ASVAB, and that is right here. So for the people asking about ASVAB, I would suggest the STEM readiness math as well. If you have students who are college bound, that's also a great place to send them to. So let's see, so lots of goals that I can have in there. And then here is a curriculum that UNM built, if anyone would like to use that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make this NRS level 6. So this would be for an advanced class. So I click to add that, and now it gives me the option to activate it. And I'm going to say, yes, I want to activate it. So now this is a live goal. I can come over here and I have a few goal options, and I honestly don't mess with these a whole terrible lot. So I'm going to go back here to general information. Now, one thing that's new here is notice now I have a goal key. So this is the goal key. It's defaulted to nmdelt_508. And I'm going to write that down because I'm going to show you how I would join that as a student. So it's nmdelt_508. Now that's just going to be what the default is. It'll be nmdelt_ and then a number. You can't, that is customizable. So you can go in here and type and change it if you would like to. Okay, so this goal is live. So I have my instructor account open in Firefox. Unfortunately, EdReady does not have a student view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to a different browser. So I'm in Google Chrome now, and now I'm going to log in with my student account. So if you ever want to be able to toggle back and forth between your instructor account and your student account, I suggest have them open in separate browser windows. And if you do want to create a student account, you just need a separate email address. And now we wait on my internet.
Gotta love that too.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Okay, internet. Let's
So
try this
Pat,
again.
if you want to run an instructor and a student account simultaneously in the same browser, can you just have two separate tabs open and toggle back and forth, or does that get confused?
It'll log you out of the prior one. So like if I logged in with my student account, it would kick me out.
Okay, so it's better to use two separate browsers. Okay.
Yeah,
Great, thank you.
exactly. And so let me kind of minimize my screen here. So now you can see that I have my instructor account on the left here in the Firefox browser, and then I have my student account on the right here in the Google Chrome browser. So this is a student account, and so when a student logs in, they're not going to have any goals. These are goals that I joined, so this would be empty on a student account. So just notice that there are all those things here. And what I'm going to do as a student is I'm going to enter a key to join a private goal over here. So there, enter a key. And I'm going to tell it to show the key because I want to be able to see as I typed. And the key I just created was NMDELT_508. And then I'm going to submit that. Uh-oh, did I type it wrong?
Was the NM-DELT lowercase?
It was, thank you.
No problem.
Okay. No, I'm not going to update my password. And see, now it tells me, okay, I've selected demonstration 5/7/2020. So remember, that was the name of my goal here. I don't know why I'm pointing at my screen. Like you guys can see what I'm pointing at. So I'm going to tell it that I'm done. And so now I can see all of my goals. So I'm going to go down here and find it. So see, here is the demonstration. So I can select here for more info and see right there what pops up. So it says this is not a real goal. This is for demonstration. Keep in mind that was from my description over here in the instructor account. I could remove this if I wanted to as a student, but I'm actually going to go to this goal. And so notice when I come here, it doesn't have a score yet. It just has a question mark. And that's telling me I need to start with that initial assessment to figure out what I know and what I need to start on. Now, a little word of caution, there are students who will hear, oh, we're taking a test day 1, and they are not gonna like that. So I suggest be very constructive when you introduce this and reinforce your students, hey, this is designed to avoid the busy work. This is so that we can know what you already know, and students in my experience are more open to it in terms of that. Also, be sure and talk to them about what their score means. So I had that screenshot a while ago where a student started out with a score of 46. I've had students see a goal of 46 and think that means 46%. That means F. No, that's not an F. That means that the student tested out of nearly half of the content in the class, and that is actually quite exceptional. One thing that's kind of cool about EdReady is even if the student completely bombs, it's going to give them at least a score of about a 15 to 20. So it won't ever give a student a 0. So it always says, hey, look, you know something, even if that something is minimal. So as a student now, I would start the diagnostic. And here it tells me about my diagnostic. So it does tend to be a pretty long diagnostic test, especially when you start getting into the higher level. So I'm in NRS level 6 now. It's going to be a pretty long test. Students don't necessarily have to do that in one sitting. They can log out and come back and return to their diagnostic later. So here's the diagnostic. Which of the following equations is true? And the student can submit it. I also really try to reinforce to my students that hitting the skip button is not a bad thing. Hitting the skip button is just the student saying, I don't know how to do this problem. This is something I need to work on. If the student hits the skip button, then this is going to go into their customized learning path. And so this would be something they work on. So if I hit skip, automatically this problem type is going to be part of my student's learning path. And sometimes I get students who don't think they know anything and they want to start at square one. I'm a real big believer in self-directed learning. So I tell the students, you know what, if you want to just go in and skip every question in the test and start out at nothing, that is totally okay with me. So that's just kind of an overview of what EdReady looks like. So from a student's perspective, that's what they would see. Now let me see. I believe this is one where I've completed. Yes, so here's one where I've completed a diagnostic. So after I go through the test as a student, this is what I'm going to see. So here's my current score of 34, and I'm going to want to try to get that up to 100. It's going to tell me to start in NRS level 1. Now, notice it uses this coloring system. So red for not ready, green for master, yellowed for needs review. That can be an accessibility issue to students who may be colorblind. So notice that you can actually use the shape. So if you have students that the colors bother, I suggest telling them to turn the shapes on. And so now I have the study path that is based on this test that I took. So there's my 34, and here's what I need to work on. So say I want to work on place values and names for whole numbers. I'm going to go into learn mode, and there's lots of great resources. I really like the NROC resources, so I'm going to study this resource. And now this is where it's actually going to teach the content to the student and give them some practice with it. Now they don't necessarily have to do everything in here, but this is the basic format all the questions are going to have in terms of warm-up, presentation, worked examples, and so on. So I click on the presentation, and notice it's a really awesome little video here. I found they're really well done videos. Notice they have closed captioning. Great thing about the closed captioning is it is available in Spanish. So the sound is only going to be in English, but they can read it on the screen in Spanish. And some instructors around the state who are fluent in Spanish say that this is good quality closed captioning. So it's grammatically correct. They didn't just run it through a machine. There's actually quite a bit of work within here. So I'm going to go back to the study options. Let's say as a student, maybe I don't like the video, so I'm not going to watch the video. Maybe I want to look at the text. And right here, this is essentially a digital textbook. So lots and lots of great options in there. And notice again, I can also read this in Spanish. So a nice aspect there in terms of other languages. And I wanted to leave the last 15 minutes for questions. So just be aware the EdReady Network has tons and tons of webinars, tons and tons of resources. It's a great place to connect with instructors from all over the country who are using EdReady. There are people there from K-12, there are people there from adult ed, there are people there from higher ed. I think it's a wonderfully rich environment. So understand EdReady, this isn't a publishing company. This is more of a collaboration of educators. So I think it's a really amazing model. You can connect around the state of New Mexico through Facebook Workplace, and that does require an DELT account. We have some great discussions on there. We also have a lot of fun. We share a lot of teaching memes and things like that. And then there's also a supplemental math textbook from EdReady. So it's tinyurl.com/ER math text. And that's just a bunch of PDFs, and it's essentially the topic text from within EdReady in a PDF format, so it's more textbook-like. And I'll be happy to answer more questions about these. But so I do want to leave the last 15 minutes for questions. So I'm going to ask in the chat if you could share with us both your wow and your how about. So wow would be what is something you're taking away from the webinar today, and how about would be something else that you want to know. So Jamie, I've been focusing on the presentation. I haven't been keeping an eye on the chat. Do we have any questions at this point?
We don't have any questions that weren't already covered. We were talking about the ASVAB. That was the main question there.
Okay.
And Jim had just made a comment that there is a major admin focus on attendance, so that's kind of their grade, quote unquote, so there is that focus on attendance logging, and he has seen that people do like to have that synchronous collaboration, when they're online, even though asynchrony is useful and it is beneficial. He has found that students do like to have a sense of being part of a group. So that was it in the chat. Yeah.
That's kind of a human need, that need to belong.
Yes.
And that's so hard with in this day and age.
Absolutely. So yeah, if there's anything that you guys want to put in the chat, I have the chat open so I can see it as it comes in. You want to share your wows and how abouts.
And I do.
Stuck a thing in chat, but I'm planning on using both Plato and EdReady side by side, and just as well as Khan Academy and everything else. I'm just going to give them all possible options so that they can choose whatever works, because I've had some students who really wanted to just do paper and pencil out of workbooks and don't like the fact that when they're on the computer, once they're done doing a module, it's all gone. There's no like, graphite on paper recording their math problems and stuff like that. So each one seems to have a preference. What have you found as far as comparing these two packages side by side? Are they quite similar?
When you say two packages, do you mean Plato versus EdReady?
Yes.
I think they both have different strengths. One thing that really makes me favor EdReady is it doesn't use a lot of bandwidth, whereas Plato can be a little bit of a bandwidth hog. I grew up in Pleasant Hill, New Mexico, if anybody knows where that is, and the internet is terrible. My parents still live out there. And when I'm out at their place, EdReady works brilliantly versus Plato. I spend a lot of time with it, like loading and lagging and that kind of thing. But that said, Plato does have more robust content. So there is a lot more room for customization within Plato, and Plato just has some features that EdReady doesn't. Plato even has some learning management features. So there's lots of cool stuff in Plato. And to be perfectly honest, I use different programs with different classes based on the need. I also see a lot of merit in McGraw-Hill's Alex, but unfortunately it is very, very pricey. And we don't have a subscription for it like we do Plato and EdReady.
Okay, well, until recently, bandwidth wasn't so much a big deal because I was using Plato, but it wasn't really distance learning because they were all in the same room using our SIPI system. But now I have a student in, North Dakota, and I have some in Taos, and some people that are so far out in the back country that they can't get, data on their phones, and we're trying to use hotspots. So the bandwidth might become a really major dividing line as far as what they work with right now. So I'll see over the next couple months.
And one other issue in terms of Plato versus EdReady that you made me think of, Plato is not terribly mobile device friendly. Whereas EdReady works brilliantly on mobile devices. So I did a pilot a couple of years ago where I required students to have some kind of laptop in class or a tablet or something. I said it had to be at least 10 inches diagonally. And I was shocked how many students used their laptop as like an armrest so they could do EdReady on their cell phones. So it made me feel like the dinosaur that I am.
I'm shocked with their choice of cell phones, because I'll have students do the exact same thing, sitting at a laptop with Plato on it, working on their cell phone, and I'm going, look, that's like an index card. And they're like,
I know.
They're uncomfortable with laptops because they have keyboards, and they're concerned they're going to somehow mess it up, where they're totally comfortable that they can't possibly screw anything up on their phone. So
yeah,
that's comfortable.
It's so fascinating to me, and I'm glad that we're having this conversation about bandwidth. So, there is this EdReady textbook. Let's see, where did it go? Which slide was it on? Yeah, so tinyurl.com/er math text. And if you don't remember the link, feel free to get in touch with me after the fact. But effectively, these are docs and PDFs of all of the instruction that would be in EdReady. So let's say you have a student who lives somewhere really remote and doesn't have access to internet. Well, maybe they could go into town for like an hour one day and get on the Wi-Fi at McDonald's. If that's the case, they can actually download these documents to their phone. So see, like this right here. So this is whole numbers. and I open this, and I don't know why my internet is being a little bit slow. There we go. And so here's all of the information on whole numbers and things like that. And the students, if they click download here, then it's actually on their phone or their laptop or whatever, and then they can work on it at home whether or not they have internet access. So that's one other option.
That's excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments or anything?
There is actually nothing else in the chat right now. But please feel free to unmute yourselves if you want to ask verbally or comment.
Is there a good system within EdReady for a few students to actually collaborate? If there is there some way for them to share if students are on similar levels so they can interact, or would that be something that I would need to monitor myself and let them know that, oh, you're all working on these same modules? Maybe you want to get back and forth, because I tell students that, you know, they're better helped by two other students who are struggling with fractions than to ask me questions about fractions when I've been doing them longer than they've been alive. I'm not as good at explaining it to them as two other people who are lost working it out together. So if I can figure out a way to have them kind of collaborate, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, and there's not anything like that built into EdReady, so there's not any kind of communication system within it, and the students can't see each other's progress. But I do think Google Meet, which we're using right now, could be a really good way to do that kind of collaboration.
Yeah, I've got to figure out how to do that over the next couple of weeks. This is the first time I've ever been in Google Meet, and we've started using Zoom, but I think we need to figure out a way.
Jim, you muted yourself.
I want to set it up so they can set up their own collaborations rather than something that I'm doing as the instructor and say, okay, here you three people are getting the same Zoom link. But if they can just know to set up a Zoom themselves or set up a Meet with each other and discuss problems, that would give them a sense of agency, I think, that they don't have.
Jim, in Classroom, Google Classroom, and both on the Google email, there is a place there that they can just click Meet, and they can all get in at the same time.
All right, that would be great. I'll try that.
And I've also had students use Facebook, which really shocked me, to do collaborations like that and groups within Facebook, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I'm going to interject, Cash, I apologize because there were things coming in the chat, but it wasn't popping up for me. So there are some questions. I apologize for that. Adrian asked, in terms of adding curriculum or content, is the English section limited to only what EdReady has already loaded?
Yes. Yes. Unfortunately, it is.
Thank you. Pam had just made a comment that Learning Upgrade has a free pilot going on for 3 months. I'm not sure what Learning Upgrade is, but she had made that comment.
Awesome.
Stephanie asked, what would you do if a student meets a score at the top level of the goal assigned?
I would create a new goal and put them in the next level of math. So like, let's say they're in NRS 3 and they hit that target score of 90, then I would go ahead and put them in NRS level 4. And in my experience when trying to place students, if in doubt, I'd rather place them too low than too high. Because if you place a student in too low of a level, they're going to ace that initial assessment, and you'll see very clearly that they need to go up higher. I think that answers your question, Stephanie, but please let me know if I misunderstood.
Thank you. Jenny asked, if we were to have a math course, would you suggest creating a goal for each individual level so that students have to join a new goal for each level, or put all 6 levels into one goal so that students can work on everything as they need it?
So that's very much a matter of opinion. I've talked to instructors who like to have everything in one goal because then it's just all there together and they see that is easier. I like to have my students in separate goals. So the thing is, it's gonna break the curriculum down into this 100-point scale. So you saw, students are gonna get a 43 or a 52 or whatever. Well, that's out of 100. So the thing is, if you put everything into one goal, let's say you have 500 topics, just to make the math easy for me, the students are only going to see that score increase every 6th topic. Whereas if you only have 100 different pieces of content in a single goal, every time they master something, they're going to see that increase. And I've been shocked. It seems to be a really good extrinsic motivator. I see students getting super excited, and they'll like text me, "Oh my gosh, I went up by 3 points today," and they're so excited. So I'm a fan of having more small goals, but that's very much a matter of personal preference.
Thank you, Cash. Ron asked, I heard New Mexico is getting rid of Plato as of July. Is that correct?
I haven't heard that, no.
We got a 5-year license, I believe, but I'm not sure when that expires.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Pam did say, I think New Readers Press has a connection to the learning upgrade that she had mentioned. So you can go there and request a free pilot program. So just a little bit more of information there. I guess that's through New Readers Press.
Awesome. And there are a lot of programs that are allowing free pilots due to COVID. I believe my lab is as well. I've heard pretty good things about my English lab. And I'm a fan of my math lab.
Pam said that was just a Google learning Google learning upgrade. That's what she said. Just Google that term, learning upgrade. So,
awesome.
And that is the end of the chat. It is exactly 1 o'clock, so that's kind of perfect. That was the end of the questions.
Real quick, sorry, I was trying to type it out. I was working along with it with Cash, so that's why I think I fell behind. I added scopes and general info to my goal.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do after that? Is it set? I can just leave it and go on to something else?
So let me I have a whole bunch of browser windows open, so bear with me while I get back in the right one.
No worries.
So I can see what you see. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that my computer can even support this many browser windows. Okay, yeah, so you're here in goals, right?
I am still on the edit goal.
Okay, so you're on the edit goal?
Yes. So right now I'm looking at the scopes window.
Let's see, so let me get back in here and edit one of my goals. I'm still sharing my screen, aren't I?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Let's see, so we'll go goals. And you can filter by owner and things like that. So I'm going to filter by my name. So let's see. So we'll edit this one. So, and this is where you are, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so on this general information page, there is a save button. If you change things up here, you're going to want to go down here and click to update the goal. Whereas when you're on scopes here, there is not an update button. So just whenever you add the scope, then it's going to save automatically.
Oh, okay, perfect. So since I have my scopes on here, it's ready to go. I can go create another one if I wanted to.
Yes, you can. And if in doubt, go to your general information and make sure that it's active. That's how you can confirm.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Cash. Thank you, Dawn, so much for your presentation. I'm going to stop the recording now. And this will be up on our YouTube channel very soon.